The sun hung low over the dusty fairgrounds of Willow Creek County, casting long shadows across the midway, where laughter mingled with the sizzle of corn dogs on hot grills and the distant hum of carnival rides. Families clustered around game booths, children darting between legs with sticky fingers, clutching prizes. But in the midst of the cheerful chaos, a small girl stood frozen at the edge of the crowd. Tessa Bloom, barely 6 years old, clutched her grandmother's hand, her wide eyes fixed on something that didn't belong. A faded teddy bear, its fur matted and one ear floppy, strapped securely to the back of a lone motorcycle parked near the entrance. The bike was a beast of chrome and black leather, its engine still ticking faintly from the ride, as if cooling from a journey that had carried ghosts along the winding back roads. Tessa's lower lip trembled, her voice a fragile whisper that cut through the noise like a shard of glass. "Grandma, why is my teddy bear on that man's bike?" The words hung in the air, innocent yet piercing, drawing Ruth Bloom's gaze sharply to the child. Ruth, 63 and weathered by years of quiet worries, knelt down, her arthritic fingers brushing Tessa's cheek. But before she could respond, the owner of the bike turned from where he'd been leaning against a fence, sipping black coffee from a thermos. Jasper Lone Maddox, 38 and built like the roads he rode, scarred, unyielding, solitary, felt the question like a punch to the gut. His hand paused mid-sip, the paper cup crumpling slightly in his grip. The bear, that damn bear. He'd carried it for years, a talisman tied to the handlebars with leather cord, never speaking of it, never letting it go. Jasper's throat tightened, memories flooding back unbidden. The screech of tires on rain-slick asphalt 5 years ago, the acrid smell of burning rubber and twisted metal on a deserted stretch of highway. He'd been riding alone that night, as always, when the crash lit up the darkness like a flare. A sedan flipped on its side, headlights shattered, and amid the wreckage, the teddy bear lay discarded in the dirt, stained with what looked like tears. Or worse. No bodies in sight. Just skid marks leading into the underbrush and an eerie silence broken only by the patter of rain. The young mother who'd been driving? Gone. The child seat in the back, empty but buckled, as if expecting return. Authorities called it a hit and run, case closed too quick for Jasper's liking, but he'd pocketed the bear on instinct, a promise to himself. If he ever found the owner, he'd hand it over, make it right. But the road had taken him farther from answers, and the bear had become his silent companion, a weight on his conscience heavier than the saddlebags. Now, here it was, staring back at him through Tessa's eyes, eyes that mirrored the photo he'd seen once in a missing persons flyer, faded now in his mind. He set the coffee down on the bike's tank, the metal warm under his calloused palm, and stepped forward slowly, his boots crunching on the gravel. The fair's lights flickered on as dusk deepened, bathing the scene in a golden glow that made the moment feel scripted, like the opening shot of some redemption tale. That's not possible," Jasper muttered, more to himself than anyone, his voice rough from disuse, gravelly like the engine he'd just shut off. He knelt to Tessa's level, the scent of cotton candy and engine oil mixing in the air, and unstrapped the bear with deliberate care, its button eyes dull under the string lights. Tessa reached out tentatively, her small fingers brushing the fur, and a sob escaped her. "It's mine. From before. Mommy gave it to me." Ruth's face paled, her hand flying to her mouth as fragments of a buried story resurfaced. She'd taken Tessa in through an emergency placement 2 years back. Paperwork sparse, origins vague, just a note about a family incident and a child in need. No birth certificate, no photos, only the girl's quiet nightmares and a habit of clutching at shadows. "How?" Ruth whispered, stepping closer to Jasper, her eyes searching his weathered face for clues. He looked away, jaw clenched, the tremble in his hands betraying the storm inside. This wasn't coincidence. It was a thread pulling at the edges of a long-forgotten vow. The crowd milled around them oblivious, the barker's call for the ring toss echoing like a distant thunder. Jasper handed the bear to Tessa, watching her hug it tight, the fabric muffling her soft cries. But as Ruth's gaze met his, he saw the unspoken question. What now? He'd ridden alone for so long, dodging the pull of old ties, the Iron Promise crew he'd left behind after the war. Brothers in arms who'd become more family than blood. They'd sworn oaths under desert skies, promises of loyalty that time and loss had frayed but never broken. This girl, this bear, it was a call he couldn't ignore. I found it at a crash site, he said finally, voice low, the words tasting like ash. Years ago, driver vanished, kid, never found. Ruth's breath hitched. Tessa came to us the same night. They said her mother was in an accident, but details were sealed. Some official handled it quietly. Jasper's blood ran cold, sealed, quietly. Words that reeked of cover-ups, the kind that festered in small towns like Willow Creek, where power bent rules and truth got buried under red tape. He glanced at his bike, the open road calling, but for the first time in years, solitude felt like a cage. The bear wasn't just a relic anymore, it was a beacon, pointing toward justice long denied. As Tessa buried her face in the toy, whispering secrets only children know, Jasper felt the weight shift, from guilt to purpose. He'd make that promise real, even if it meant riding into shadows deeper than the night. The fair's music swelled, a brass band striking up a jaunty tune that clashed with the tension coiling in Jasper's chest. Ruth placed a hand on his arm, her touch steady despite the tremor in her voice. If this is connected, we need to know. For her. He nodded, the decision settling like dust after a storm. Iron Promise. The name echoed in his mind, a lifeline to the chosen family he'd forsaken. One call and they'd come. Leather vests and rumbling engines, ready to unearth what corruption had hidden. But first, he had to face the man in the mirror, the lone rider who finally chose to stop running. As the stars pricked the twilight sky, Jasper fired up his bike, the engine's roar a vow in itself. Tessa waved from Ruth's side, the bear clutched like a shield, and in that innocent gesture, a fractured story began to mend. The road ahead twisted toward revelation, where old promises would clash with new betrayals, and honor would demand its due. The engine's growl faded into the night as Jasper pulled away from the fairgrounds, the teddy bear's absence leaving an odd lightness on his bike, like shedding a skin he'd worn too long. Willow Creek's lights blurred in his rear view, the Midway's glow shrinking to pinpricks against the encroaching dark. He rode without direction at first, the highway unspooling like a vein through the hills, wind whipping at his jacket as if urging confession. But the pull was stronger now, tethering him back. Tessa's face, small and trusting, flickered in his mind, overlaid with the ghost of that empty child seat from 5 years past. He'd kept silent then, riding on, but silence had become a chain. Tonight, it snapped. He veered onto a side road, gravel spitting under his tires, toward the old diner on the edge of town, a neon-lit relic called Root's End, where truckers nursed coffee and locals swapped whispers over pie. Ruth had mentioned meeting there, away from prying eyes, to piece together what the bear had unearthed. Jasper killed the engine outside, the sudden quiet amplifying the cricket's chorus and the faint jukebox twang from within. He dismounted, boots heavy on the cracked pavement, and pushed through the door. The air hit him thick with grease and brewed coffee, the scent of hash browns mingling with the faint tang of cigarette smoke from the back booth. Ruth sat alone at a corner table, her silver hair catching the fluorescent hum, Tessa asleep against her side with the bear tucked under her chin. The girl's chest rose and fell in shallow rhythms, dreams chasing whatever shadows haunted her. Ruth looked up, her eyes red-rimmed but resolute, and slid a mug across the formica as Jasper approached. "Black, no sugar. Figured you'd need it." He nodded, sinking into the vinyl seat that creaked under his weight. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with a name tag reading Marge, poured without a word and vanished, leaving them in the bubble of their shared secret. "I didn't believe it at first," Ruth said, her voice a low murmur, fingers tracing the mug's rim. "Tessa's been drawing pictures, crashes, bears, a lady with sad eyes. I thought it was just her way of coping, but that toy. It's the one from her stories. The one her mama gave her before everything went wrong." Jasper leaned forward, the steam from his coffee curling like unspoken regrets. "Tell me about the placement, every detail you remember." Ruth glanced at Tessa, then back, her words measured, as if testing the air for listeners. "It was a stormy night, same as you described. Social services dropped her off at my door. Emergency foster, they said. No warning. Just a duffel with a few clothes, and that vague note about an incident. The caseworker was new, fidgety, mentioned a supervisor, Harlan Voss, town clerk, handles sensitive matters, said the mother's car had an accident, but she was. Unaccounted for. Paperwork would follow. It never did. Harlan Voss. The name landed like a stone in still water, rippling through Jasper's memory. He'd heard it before, in passing, from roadside chats with locals. Voss, the smooth-talking official who greased wheels and buried files, his office a vault of small-town skeletons. Whispers of favors for the right price, cases vanishing like smoke. Jasper's jaw tightened, the diner's clock ticking like a countdown. Sealed details, handled quietly, sounds like more than bureaucracy. Ruth nodded, her hand brushing Tessa's hair. "I pushed at first, hired a lawyer on a shoestring. But Voss shut it down, said it was for the child's protection, national security angle or some nonsense. I backed off for her sake. Stability over truth. But now..." Her voice cracked, eyes meeting his with a plea that echoed his own buried vows. Outside, a truck rumbled past, headlights slicing the dark, and Jasper felt the walls closing in. He'd walked away from messes like this before. The war had taught him that some truths cost more than they healed. Brothers lost to desert sands. Promises whispered over dog tags that ended in silence. Iron Promise had been his anchor then, a crew forged in fire, vests patched with symbols of oaths unbroken. He'd left them after his last tour, the weight of survivors' guilt too heavy for brotherhood, rode alone to outrun the echoes. But Tessa's question at the fair, it was a mirror, reflecting the boy he'd failed to save in his youth, the one whose pleas he'd ignored until it was too late. This time the promise wasn't just his, it was for the girl who saw ghosts in stuffed animals. He pulled out his phone, the screen's glow harsh in the dim booth, and scrolled to a number he hadn't dialed in years. "Hawk," he said when the line connected, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. Tom Hawk Daniels, the Iron Promise founder, answered with a gravelly warmth that bridged the miles. "Lone? Hell, it's been a ghost calling." Jasper glanced at Ruth, who nodded encouragement. "Got a situation. A kid, a crash, cover-up stinking to high heaven. Need the crew. Old promises." There was a pause, the kind that carried the weight of shared scars. Then Hawk's reply, "Coordinates. We're rolling at dawn. Loyalty don't fade, brother." The call ended, but the line hummed in Jasper's veins, a lifeline to the family he'd chosen, ready to ride for justice where law faltered. Ruth watched him pocket the phone, a spark of hope softening her features. "You don't have to do this alone." Jasper managed a half-smile, the first in what felt like ages. Never was, really. Just forgot. Tessa stirred then, murmuring in her sleep, the bear's floppy ear brushing her cheek. The diner door swung open, letting in a gust of cool night air. and Marge refilled their mugs without asking. In that ordinary moment, the pieces aligned, a relic from wreckage, a grandmother's quiet fight, a rider's redemption. Voss's shadow loomed larger now, his quiet handling a web of corruption that snared innocence. But with iron promise en route, engines thundering like judgment, the scales tipped toward truth. As the clock struck midnight, Jasper stepped outside, the stars a vast canopy over the lot. He lit a cigarette, the flame flickering against the wind, and exhaled smoke that twisted toward the horizon. The road called again, but this time with purpose, not escape, but pursuit. Dawn would bring the convoy, leather and chrome united under a banner of honor. For Tessa, for the mother lost to shadows, for the promise that had waited years to be kept. The diner's neon buzzed on, a beacon in the black, as Jasper mounted his bike. The engine roared to life, a vow echoing into the night, carrying him toward the unraveling of secrets long guarded. And now, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The first light of dawn crept over the hills like a hesitant witness, painting the sky in streaks of pale gold and bruised purple. Jasper had barely slept. The diner's parking lot, his makeshift camp, his bike a sentinel against the chill. He'd dozed in fits on the bench outside, the bear's absence a hollow echo in his thoughts, replaced now by the low rumble building on the horizon. It started as a vibration in the earth, then swelled into a symphony of thunder, engines harmonizing in a cadence born of battlefields and backroads. Iron Promise arrived not as a gang, but as a force. 20 riders strong, vests emblazoned with the iron fist clutching a broken chain, symbols of vows forged in fire and tempered by loss. Hawk led the pack, his silver-streaked beard catching the light as he pulled up beside Jasper, killing the engine with a practiced flick. Tom Hawk Daniels, pushing 50 but unbowed, dismounted with the grace of a man who'd stared down worse than county corruption. His eyes, sharp as flint, scanned Jasper's face, reading the scars anew. "You look like hell, Lone. Whatever dragged you back, it better be worth the ride." Behind him, the crew fanned out, veterans like Rook Ramirez, a wiry ex-medic with hands steady from stitching wounds under fire, and Echo Hale, the quiet enforcer whose silence masked a mind like a steel trap. They nodded greetings, no questions yet. Just the unspoken bond of brothers who'd buried too many under desert sands. Jasper clasped Hawk's forearm, the grip firm, grounding. "It is. A kid's caught in it. Lost mom, sealed files, a local shark named Harlan Voss pulling strings." He recounted the fare, the bear, Ruth's fragmented tale, voice low against the cooling engines. The air smelled of dew-kissed asphalt and exhaust. The diner's neon long faded, Hawk's jaw set, a flicker of old rage in his eyes, the kind that came from watching justice twist into knots overseas. "Cover-ups, we know the type. Starts with one lie, ends with graves unmarked." He turned to the crew, his voice carrying like a command. "We ride clean, no badges, no blood. Truth's our weapon. Rook, you and Echo scout Voss's office. Quiet, Lone, you're with me to the Bloom place. Rest, gear up." The convoy split with precision, bikes peeling off in pairs, their taillights winking like fireflies into the mist. Jasper followed Hawk toward Ruth's modest home on the town's outskirts, a weathered bungalow framed by wildflowers and a picket fence that begged for paint. The road wound through fields heavy with morning fog, tires humming over cracked pavement, the scent of damp earth rising like a promise of unearthed secrets. Jasper's mind raced ahead. Voss, the town clerk, his name whispered in diners and bars as the fixer who made problems disappear. If Tessa's placement tied to that crash, Voss held the key, or the blade. Ruth answered the door before they knocked, her face drawn but fierce. Tessa peeking from behind her skirt, the bear clutched like armor. "You came," Ruth breathed, stepping aside to let them in. The living room was a sanctuary of faded quilts and family photos, sunlight slanting through lace curtains to dust motes dancing in the air. Tessa eyed the newcomers warily, her small fingers twisting the bear's ear. "Are you the good guys?" she asked, voice muffled against the fabric. Hawk knelt, his bulk gentle, offering a smile cracked by years. "The best kind, kiddo. The ones who keep promises." She nodded, retreating to a corner with her toy, but her eyes followed them, bright with unspoken questions. Over coffee at the scarred oak table, strong and bitter, steam curling like confessions, Ruth laid out what she could. A shoebox of papers, the emergency placement form, stamped but incomplete, a blurry photo of a young woman, Tessa's mother perhaps, smiling at a park, notes from failed inquiries, each stamped "Denied Protected Information." Jasper traced the edges, the paper rough under his thumb, anger coiling tight. "Voss's signatures everywhere. He stonewalled you." Ruth nodded, her voice a whisper. "Said it was for national security, some old law about sensitive cases, but Willow Creek ain't got secrets worth that. Felt like he was hiding his own dirt." Hawk leaned back, chair creaking, his mind already mapping the play. "We start small. Public records, old news clippings. If it's a chain, it leads somewhere." His phone buzzed then. Rook, from Voss's office downtown. Building's quiet, but the clerk's got a back room locked tight, shredders humming like it's overtime, pulled a file dump from the trash, mentions a quiet resolution on a highway incident 5 years back. Driver ID, Elena Reyes, vanished after the wreck. Child, Tessa Reyes, age 1, placement routed through Voss direct to emergency services, no follow-up. The name hit Jasper like gravel in the throat. Elena Reyes, the ghost from the crash, her wallet found crumpled near the bear, photo of a baby girl tucked inside. He'd kept that too, buried in his saddlebag, a detail he'd never shared. Now it connected. The empty seat, the vanished mother, a toddler spirited away under Voss's watch. "Reyes," Jasper echoed, the word heavy. She was running from something. Skid marks suggested pursuit, not accident. Ruth's hand trembled on her mug. Tessa's nightmares, cars chasing, a lady screaming, if Voss covered it. Her eyes welled, but she blinked it back, steel in her spine for the girl in the corner. Outside, the neighborhood stirred, birds calling, a distant lawnmower, but inside tension thickened like fog. Hawk pocketed his phone, decision etched in his lines. "We lean on Voss, not with fists, with facts. Echoes digging deeper, he'll find the cracks." But Jasper saw the shadow in Hawk's gaze, the war's echo. Sometimes truth demanded sacrifice, a brother's blood for the greater oath. He'd left iron promise to spare them his ghosts, but here they were, riding for his burden, loyalty, unasked, unbreakable. Tessa wandered over then, climbing into Ruth's lap, the bear's button eyes staring at Jasper. "Will you find my mummy?" she asked, innocent as dawn. He met her gaze, the weight of 5 years pressing down, and nodded. "Yeah, kid, we will. Promise." The word hung, sealing it. A vow renewed, threading through the chosen family around the table. Hawk clapped his shoulder, the gesture solid as iron. "Crews assembling at the old mill by noon. We map the web. Voss won't bury this one." As they stepped into the sunlight, bikes waiting like loyal hounds, Jasper felt the shift, from lone shadow to part of the raw. The road to Voss's secret stretched ahead, twisted with moral thorns, exposed the corruption, but at what cost to the innocent? Engines fired in sequence, a low, growl building, carrying them toward confrontation. The bungalow shrank in the mirrors, Tessa waving from the porch, her small figure a beacon against the lies. Honor demanded they ride on, unraveling the chain link by link until justice broke free. The wind whipped sharp, tasting of resolve, as the convoy thundered toward the heart of the hidden storm. The midday sun beat down on the old mill like a relentless interrogator, its rusted silos casting jagged shadows across the cracked concrete yard. Jasper pulled up with Hawk, the convoy's engines cutting off one by one, leaving a hush broken only by the creak of cooling metal and the distant rush of the river below. The mill, abandoned since the floods of 18, stood as a forgotten sentinel on Willow Creek's edge, perfect for Iron Promises gatherings, away from town eyes and whispering wires. Vests gleamed under the glare, patches of iron fists and unbroken chains, a silent testament to oaths that outlasted rust. Hawk dismounted first, his boots thudding solidly as he scanned the group. 20 riders, faces etched with the quiet resolve of men who'd traded fatigues for leathers, but never the code. "Circle up," he called, voice carrying like a sergeant's bark softened by years. They formed a loose ring near the loading dock, where graffiti faded into weeds, the air thick with the scent of dry timber and motor oil. Jasper leaned against his bike, arms crossed, the phantom weight of the bear still tugging at his mind. Tessa's question echoed, why? And now, with the crew assembled, the answer demanded action, not echoes. Rook stepped forward, his medic's bag slung over one shoulder, pulling a crumpled sheaf of papers from inside. Voss's office was a goldmine in the trash, more than we thought. He spread the documents on a weathered crate, the ink smudged but legible, reports on the Reyes crash, redacted lines screaming cover-up. Elena Reyes, 25, single mother fleeing an abusive ex, her sedan veering off Highway 47 after what looked like a tail, skid marks veering sharp, not wild. No police pursuit logged, but a note in Voss's scrawl. Resolution via private channel, child secured, no further inquiry. Tessa's name redacted, placement funneled straight to Ruth without trace. "This ain't accident protocol," Rook said, tapping a faded stamp. "It's erasure." Voss signed off as interim guardian, like he owned the kid. Echo nodded from the shadows, his lean frame coiled like a spring, eyes hidden behind aviators. Digital trails thin, but I cracked his email archive from a backdoor server. Ties to a private security firm, off-books muscle for sensitive relocations. Elena was marked high risk weeks before the crash. Domestic dispute escalated, but Voss buried the report. Looks like he brokered a deal. Ex gets custody, quiet, child rerouted. But the wreck threw it. She vanished. Tessa placed emergency to cut loose ends. The words landed heavy, the group's murmurs rising like wind through the silos. Jasper's fists clenched, the metal of his rings biting into palms. He'd seen this overseas. Power-shielding predators. Oaths twisted for profit. Voss wasn't just a clerk. He was the spider in the web, spinning silence for the right fee. Hawk paced the edge of the circle, gravel crunching underfoot, his shadow stretching long. "We ride to his office at dusk. No storming in. Observe, document. If he's the link, we expose the chain. But remember, we're not vigilantes. Iron Promise stands for the forgotten, not the fall." His gaze locked on Jasper, a silent challenge. "You called us in, Lone. This your lead?" Jasper straightened, the sun warming his back like a forge. Memories flashed. The war's dust-choked patrols, brothers covering each other through fire, promises whispered over canteens. He'd bolted after, guilt from a lost squadmate chaining him to solitude. But Tessa's trust, Ruth's plea, they cracked the isolation. "Yeah," he said, voice steady as his bike's idle. "For the kid, for what we swore." The crew dispersed to prep, checking chains, mapping routes, the rhythmic clinks a counterpoint to the rising tension. Jasper wandered to the mill's overlook, the river below churning white over rocks, mist rising like ghosts from the deep. His phone buzzed. "Ruth, Tessa's asking for you." Drew a picture. "The bear, a lady in a car, men in shadows. Said you promised." The words twisted in his gut, a reminder of the boy from his youth, the one whose cry for help he'd ignored in a moment of fear, leading to tragedy. That scar had driven him to the roads, collecting regrets like mileage. But iron promise? They were the family that mended breaks. Not blood, but bond, loyalty, a shield against the world's cynicism. Dusk fell swift, the sky bleeding orange as the convoy rolled into Willow Creek's heart, a subdued rumble to avoid alarm. Voss's office squatted in the town hall annex, a squat brick building lit by sodium lamps that buzzed like angry hornets. They parked a block out, blending into the evening foot traffic, couples strolling, shops shuttering with the chime of bells. Jasper and Hawk approached on foot, shadows lengthening, the air cooling with the scent of cooling pavement and distant rain. Through the window, Voss hunched at his desk, a paunchy man in his 50s, tie askew, rifling drawers with hurried hands, shredder whirring again, papers feeding in like confessions to the flame. They slipped to the side alley, where Echo waited by a service door, lock picked with a soft click. Inside, the hall smelled of stale coffee and ink, fluorescent hum overhead. Voices filtered from Voss's office, his oily and low on the phone. "Yeah, the Bloom woman's stirring, that old biker sniffing, handle it quiet, no traces." Jasper's blood iced. The threat hung, aimed at Ruth, at Tessa. Hawk signaled restraint, but Jasper's hand itched for the door. Ethical fire burned. Barge in, demand truth, risk the girl, or play the long game, gather proof for the light of day. Echo motioned to a file cabinet, ajar, spilling a ledger. Payments from the security firm, Voss's cut marked in pencil. Elena's case resolved with a signature. And a photo tucked in the back. Tessa as a toddler. Elena's arms around her. Smiles bright before the dark. Jasper pocketed a copy, heart pounding, the moral cliff sharp. Exposed now. Chaos for the innocent. Wait, let the web tighten. Voss's chair scraped. They melted into shadows as he stepped out, locking up, oblivious to the eyes on his back. Outside, the convoy reformed under streetlights, engines purring low. Hawk's face was thunder. "We got enough for leverage. Tomorrow we pay Voss a visit, official with witnesses, but if he bolts..." Jasper nodded, mounting up, the night's chill seeping through leather. The ride back thrummed with purpose, wind carrying whispers of redemption. Tessa's story wasn't buried anymore. It breathed, pulling them toward justice's edge. Promises old and new intertwined, the chosen family a roar against corruption's hush. As the mill loomed again, stars wheeling overhead, Jasper felt the chain loosen, not broken but shared. Honor rode with them, silent but unyielding. If this tale of quiet courage has stirred something in you, hit that, like button below. Your support keeps these stories of redemption rolling, chapter by chapter. The morning mist clung to Willow Creek, like a veil of half-truths, softening the edges of the town hall annex as Jasper and the core of Iron Promise rolled in at 9 sharp. Engines idled low, a restrained growl that turned heads from the early commuters and shop owners sweeping stoops. No chrome parade this time, just Hawk, Jasper, Rook and Echo, vests zipped over plain shirts to blend the thunder with subtlety. The air carried the bite of dew on brick and the faint, acrid whiff of exhaust, a reminder that justice didn't always roar. Sometimes it whispered close enough to chill. Hawk killed his bike first, the group dismounting in unison, boots sinking on the pavement like a quiet march. Jasper's pulse thrummed steady, the evidence from last night, a copied ledger page, Elena Reyes's photo, Voss's scrawled notes, tucked in his inner pocket, heavy as a dog tag. He'd barely slept again, Tessa's drawing haunting his dreams, stick figures in a twisted car, shadows looming, the bear a small sentinel. Ruth had texted at dawn, "She's calm, clutching that toy. Whatever you do, make it right for her." The words fueled him, threading his solitary scars into the crew's unbreakable weave. They entered the annex without fanfare, the glass door chiming softly, the lobby's linoleum echoing their steps under fluorescent glare. A receptionist glanced up from her desk, her smile faltering at the sight of weathered faces and purposeful strides. "Can I help?" Hawk cut in, smooth, flashing a disarming nod. "Here to see Harlan Voss. Official business. Tell him it's about an old placement. Reyes case." Her fingers hesitated on the phone, eyes flicking to the door behind her, but protocol won. "One moment." Voss emerged minutes later, his frame filling the doorway like a poorly tailored suit, paunch straining buttons, face flushed under thinning hair, eyes darting like a cornered animal. He adjusted his tie, forcing a politician's grin that didn't reach his gaze. "Gentlemen, what brings iron promise to my humble office? Heard you riders keep to the roads." The name dropped casual, but Jasper caught the edge, the probe. Voss knew more than he let on. The air thickened with it, stale files and hidden ink. Hawk stepped forward, voice even as worn leather. "We're here for answers, not trouble. 5 years back, a crash on Highway 47. Elena Reyes behind the wheel, her daughter Tessa in the back. You signed off on the resolution. Care to explain why the child's story got buried?" Voss's smile cracked, his hand gripping the doorframe white-knuckled. He glanced at the receptionist, still lingering, ears perked, then waved them into his office, the door clicking shut behind like a trap springing. The room was a clutter of stacks and locked cabinets, the shredder silent now, but its bin overflowing with confetti lies. Sunlight slanted through blinds, striping the desk where Voss sank into his chair, gesturing to seats they ignored. "Protected information," Voss said, leaning back, his tone oily as spilled fuel. "National security overlay, old protocols for domestic threats. Reyes was fleeing an unstable situation. We handled it quietly to shield the child. Placement was emergency. That's all you need." Jasper's jaw tightened, the photo burning against his chest. He pulled it out, sliding it across the desk, the image of Elena cradling baby Tessa, joy unmarred. "Shield or sell? Your ledger shows payments from a security outfit. Quiet relocation. She vanished after the wreck. Kid rerouted like cargo. You were interim guardian. Explain that." Voss's eyes narrowed, sweat beading on his brow despite the AC's hum. He shuffled papers, buying time, the rustle loud in the tension. "Misunderstanding, I facilitated protection. The ex had claims. We mediated. Crash was unfortunate. Hit and run, case closed. Tessa's safe with the Blooms. End of story." But his voice wavered, the lie thin as fog. Echo, silent till now, leaned in from the corner, his presence a shadow that amplified the room's confinement. "Emails say different. High risk marked weeks prior. You buried the pursuit report. Skid marks from a tail, not accident. Where's Elena now? Unaccounted, don't cut it." The clerk's facade splintered, his chair scraping as he stood, face reddening. "You broke in? This is harassment. I'll call authorities." Hawk's laugh was low, without mirth, his bulk unmoving. "Call 'em. We'll wait. But those files, copies are with a lawyer already. Public records request filed at dawn. Your private channels unravel fast in daylight." Voss paced, the carpet muffling his steps, trapped between the window's glare and the crew's unyielding circle. Jasper watched, the moral weight pressing. Push too hard, Voss lawyers up, truth delays, ease off, the web tightens around Tessa. But the promise demanded more. Elena's smile in that photo echoed the boy from his past, the one whose silence had cost everything. No more ghosts. Finally Voss slumped, voice dropping to a rasp. "All right, off record. Elena was running from her ex, bad blood, threats, he had connections, wanted the kid back quiet. I arranged mediation. Crash happened en route to a safe house. She bailed the wreck, took off, panicked maybe. We found the child alone, crying by the road. Placement was to protect her from him. Eleanor, slip the net. No body, no crime. I sealed it to keep the ex away. Favor for a friend. The words twisted. Half-truths laced with evasion, but cracks showed. The security firm's name matching the ledger. Voss's cut implied in the pause. Jasper's blood heated, fists balling at his sides. Favor, you profited, and if she's out there, hurt or worse because of your quiet. Voss met his gaze, defiance flickering. Prove it. She's gone. 5 years. Let sleeping dogs lie. But the door rattled then, a knock, urgent. The receptionist. Sheriff's on the line, Mr. Voss. Something about an anonymous tip? Panic flashed in the clerk's eyes, the room's air turning electric. Had Voss called already, or was it the crew's play, a bluff from Rook outside? Hawks signaled retreat, calm as a gathering storm. We're done here. But this ride's public tomorrow. Newspapers, state oversight. Your web's fraying, Harlan. They filed out, Voss's protests chasing them into the lobby, where morning light flooded clean and unforgiving. Outside, Rook waited by the bikes, thumbs up subtle, tip planted, wheels turning. The convoy mounted up, engines firing in a low chorus that vibrated through Jasper's bones, carrying them from the annex toward Ruth's. Revelations simmered, Elena alive, the ex's shadow, Voss's friend, a deeper rot. The ride blurred fields into streaks, wind scouring doubt, the crew's formation a shield of loyalty. Jasper rode point with Hawk, the road's hum sinking their silence, shared scars speaking louder than words. Iron Promise wasn't just backup, it was redemption's roar, pulling him from isolation's edge. At the bungalow, Ruth waited on the porch, Tessa beside her, bear in hand. The girl's eyes lit as Jasper pulled up, her wave small but fierce. Did you find her? Jasper dismounted, kneeling, the gravel biting knees. Getting there, kid, one truth at a time. But inside, doubt gnawed. Voss's half-lie hid more, a chain linking to dangers that could snag the innocent. As the sun climbed, casting long shadows over the picket fence, the phone buzzed. Echo, voice tight. Voss bolted, office empty, files torched. He's running. The moral crossroads sharpened. Chase the spider, risk the web collapsing on Tessa, or fortify, let law's slow grind claim him. Hawk's nod sealed it. Ride on, chosen family united. Promises forging the path. The engines revved again, a vow against the gathering clouds, thundering toward the unraveling heart of betrayal. The clouds gathered thick over Willow Creek like unspoken accusations, turning the midday sky to slate as the Iron Promise convoy veered off the main road toward the outskirts. Jasper gripped the handlebars tighter, the vibration humming through his gloves, a steady pulse against the chaos churning inside. Voss had bolted, Echo's tip confirmed it, the Clark's sedan spotted fleeing town limits, tires kicking up dust on a backcountry route that snaked toward the county line. The air whipped cool and sharp, carrying the metallic tang of impending rain as Hawk signaled the split, half the crew to flank from the east. Jasper and a tight-knot riding point to intercept. No sirens, no badges, just the low thunder of engines and the weight of oaths that demanded pursuit without descending into the shadows they fought. Jasper's mind raced with the road's rhythm. Tessa's drawing folded in his pocket now, its crayon lines a fragile map of loss. The bungalow's porch, her small wave as they'd roared away, it anchored him, a promise etched deeper than ink. Ruth's voice over the phone earlier, steady but laced with fear. Don't let him vanish with her story. Voss wasn't just running from exposure. He was erasing the last threads, torching files that might lead to Elena Reyes, alive or not. The ex's shadow loomed larger in Jasper's thoughts, a predator Voss had shielded for profit. The quiet resolution, a chain that had snared a mother and child. Iron Promise rode as one now, their formation a wedge cutting through the mist-shrouded fields, loyalty a force that bent the wind itself. They crested a rise, the horizon unfolding into scrubland dotted with skeletal oaks, the river's distant murmur a low underscore to the engine's growl. Rook's voice crackled over the comms, clipped and calm. Scents fresh, tire tracks veering north toward the old quarry. He's panicking, no plan. Jasper nodded to himself, throttle easing as Hawk raised a fist, slowing the pack. The quarry loomed ahead, a yawning scar in the earth from decades past. Chain-link fences sagging like forgotten warnings, water pooling black at its base. Voss's sedan huddled near the edge, doors ajar, the engine ticking down like a guilty heartbeat. The clerk scrambled out as the bikes crested into view, his face ashen under the gathering gloom, a satchel clutched to his chest like a shield. Hawk killed his engine first, the silence crashing in, broken only by the wind sifting through dry grass and the faint drip of water from the quarry walls. "Harlan Voss!" he called, voice carrying clear, unyielding as granite. "End of the road. We know what you buried." The crew fanned out, a semicircle of leather and resolve, boots planted firm on the gravel that crunched like brittle bones. Jasper dismounted slow, his shadow merging with Hawk's, the photo of Elena and baby Tessa heavy in his vest. Voss backed toward the fence, eyes wild, sweat carving tracks down his jowls. The air smelled of wet stone and desperation, the first fat drops of rain spotting the dust. "You can't prove nothing," Voss spat, voice cracking, the satchel slipping in his grip. "It's all ash now. Reyes ran, coward, leaving her kid. I saved the girl from worse." But the lie fractured under scrutiny, his gaze darting to the quarry's edge, a 30-foot drop to oblivion. Jasper stepped forward, rain beading on his jacket, the drops cold as regret. "Saved or sold? Your emails, the payments, security firm tied to her ex. He chased her that night. You covered the tracks. Tessa's nightmares? That's your legacy." The words hung, moral barbs hooking deep, Voss's shoulders slumping as if the weight of 5 years' deceit finally bowed him. Echo moved like smoke, circling wide to block retreat, his voice low but piercing. "Satchel's got the originals, unredacted reports. Elena didn't run alone. She was headed to a women's shelter, tipped off about the tale. You rerouted her for safety, straight into the trap." Voss froze, the bag tumbling open at his feet, papers scattering in the rising wind. Reports, signatures, a faded map marking the crash site. One sheet fluttered free, a witness statement buried deep from a trucker who'd seen the pursuit, lights flashing unauthorized in the rear view. Jasper knelt to snatch it, the paper damp and pulsing with truth, his fingers trembling not from cold, but from the echo of his own past silences. The boy ignored, the squad lost, promises broken in the heat of fear. Voss lunged for the documents, but Rook intercepted. Gentle hands pinning without harm, the medic's touch a reminder of wounds healed, not inflicted. "Easy. This ends clean." The clerk sagged against the fence, rain sheeting his face, mixing with tears or defeat. The ex. Marcus Hale. Old money, connections upstate. Wanted the kid to spite her. Elena fought custody. I mediated for a cut. Crash was meant to scare, not kill. She vanished after, jumped the wreck, ran into the woods. We searched, but... His voice trailed, the confession spilling like the downpour, each word a link snapping in the chain. No body, but coordinates scrawled on a note. A remote cabin, miles off-grid, where Eleanor might have sought refuge, alive and hidden from the hunter Voss had enabled. Hawk's eyes hardened, the rain drumming on his vest like judgment. "You profited from fear. Iron promise, don't let that stand." He pulled out his phone, dialing the state line, anonymous tip to authorities. Coordinates fed precise. No vigilante rush, justice through channels, but amplified by their unyielding code. Voss nodded numbly as sirens wailed faint in the distance, the web collapsing under its own rot. Jasper watched, the storm cleansing the air, carrying away the staleness of buried lies. But victory tasted bitter-sweet. The X still out there, a shadow unbound, Eleanor's fate a question mark that tugged at the promise. The crew mounted as the first patrol lights pierced the sheets of rain, engines roaring back to life in a chorus of solidarity. Jasper paused, glancing at the scattered papers. Unclinging to his boot, Elena's handwriting faint, "For Tessa, keep fighting." He pocketed it, the weight shifting from guilt to hope, the chosen family around him a bulwark against the storm's fury. They rode out, convoy tight, the quarry shrinking in the mirrors, Voss's silhouette blurring with the law's approach. Back to Ruth's, to Tessa. The beacon waited, her story no longer silenced. But as thunder rolled, Jasper felt the pull of unfinished roads, the X's threat a final thorn in the moral thicket. Loyalty had unearthed one truth. Redemption demanded they chase the last shadow, honoring the vow that bound them all. The rain eased to a drizzle as they neared the bungalow, the sky cracking open to slivers of blue, but Jasper's resolve hardened like cooling steel. Tessa's face pressed to the window, bare in arms, her wave a spark in the gloom. The engines hushed, the crew dismounting in the yard, mud sucking at boots, the scent of wet earth rising fresh. Ruth opened the door, eyes searching, and Jasper stepped forward, the witness statement extended like an olive branch wrapped in iron. "Eleanor's trail. She's out there. We ride for her tomorrow." The girl's eyes widened, clutching the toy tighter, and in that moment the fractured family knit closer, promises kept, not in violence, but in the quiet thunder of truth pursued. Hawk clapped Jasper's back, the gesture sealing it. One more dawn, one final roar to mend what corruption had torn. The road called, but now with brothers at his side, honor's legacy burning bright against the fading storm. The first rays of a new dawn sliced through the pines like hesitant fingers, gilding the narrow trail that wound toward the remote cabin. Jasper led the way, his bike's engine a subdued purr against the forest's hush, the air crisp with pine sap and the faint earthy promise of renewal after the storm. And promise followed in a tight line, Hawk at his flank, Rook and Echo bringing up the rear, their vests dusted with road grit, symbols of unbroken chains catching the light. No grand convoy this time. Subtlety was the blade they wielded now, cutting through the underbrush toward coordinates pulled from Voss's confession. The satchel's contents had yielded more than fear, Elena Reyes's faint trail. A hidden refuge where a mother might have pieced together survival from shadows. Jasper's grip tightened on the handlebars, the leather warm under his palms, Tessa's drawing tucked safe in his vest, like a talisman. Her question from the fair echoed softer now, not a wound but a guide. Why? Because promises, once unearthed, demanded fulfillment. Not with thunder, but with the steady resolve of riders who'd lost too much to let innocence fade. Ruth had held Tessa close as they departed at midnight, the girl's small hand waving from the porchlight, the bear's floppy ear a silent witness. "Bring her home," Ruth had whispered, her eyes fierce with the quiet strength of guardians who'd chosen family over blood. Jasper nodded then, the weight of it settling, not solitary anymore, but shared among brothers forged in fire. The trail narrowed, branches whispering against fairings, the scent of damp moss rising as they crested a ridge. The cabin emerged like a forgotten sketch, weathered logs under a sagging roof, smoke curling lazy from a stone chimney, windows shuttered against the world. No vehicle in sight, just a faint path trodden into the ferns, suggesting life amid isolation. Hawk signaled a halt, engines dying to a collective sigh, the forest reclaiming silence broken only by birdsong and the distant trickle of a stream. They dismounted, boots soft on needle-strewn ground, moving as one toward the structure, Hawk's hand raised for caution, Echo's eyes scanning for traps unseen. A door creaked open before they reached it. The figure in the threshold, a silhouette etched against the dim interior. Elena Reyes, 30 now, but aged by 5 years vigil. Her dark hair tied back, eyes hollowed by watchfulness, yet sharp with survival's edge. She held a shotgun loose at her side, not raised, but ready, the stance of one who'd fled predators and built walls from fear. Rain from the night before dripped from the eaves, pattering like hesitant applause. "Who sent you?" she demanded, voice roughened by disuse, carrying the tremor of a life in hiding. Jasper stepped forward, hands open, the photo from Voss's files extended like a bridge. "Tessa, your girl. She's safe. With Ruth Bloom. We found the bear, the crash, everything." Elena's breath hitched, the gun lowering as recognition dawned, her free hand reaching for the image, fingers tracing the faded smiles. Tears welled, unbidden, carving clean paths down dust-streaked cheeks. Tessa. They said she was gone, placed away, no trace. The words spilled then, a dam breaking, the chase on Highway 47, Marcus Hale's men closing in, the wreck a desperate flip into the night. She'd crawled from the twisted metal, baby Tessa crying in her arms, fleeing into the woods with nothing but instinct, and the bear clutched tight. Voss's mediation had been a betrayal, funneling her toward Hale's grasp for a price. She'd vanished deeper, surviving on odd jobs and shadows, always one step from discovery, her heart tethered to a child she believed lost forever. Hawk's voice cut gentle through the revelation, his presence a steady anchor. "Voss is done, exposed, in custody. Hale's next, his connections crumbling under the light we shone." Elena's gaze flicked to the vests, the iron symbols, reading the unspoken oath. "You rode for her? Strangers?" Jasper met her eyes, the forest's green, framing the moment like a frame from some quiet epic. "Not strangers, chosen family, iron promise, we keep what's sworn." She nodded, the shotgun set aside, stepping into the light as if emerging from a long eclipse. The air shifted, charged with fragile hope, the scent of wood smoke mingling with relief's faint salt. Back at the bungalow by midday, the sun high and unyielding, Eleanor's arrival unfolded like a scene scripted by fate. Ruth met her at the gate, arms open, no words needed as old fears dissolved in embrace. Tessa froze in the doorway, bear dangling from one hand, her wide eyes locking on the woman who mirrored her own. Same curl to the hair, same spark in the gaze. "Mommy?" The word trembled out, innocent and piercing, the toy slipping to the grass as Eleanor knelt, pulling her close. The reunion was no explosion of joy, but a quiet mending, sobs muffled in shoulders, fingers intertwining like roots seeking soil. Jasper watched from the porch, Hawk at his side, the crew dispersed in the yard, Rook checking a scraped knee on Tessa with medic's care, Echo scanning horizons for lingering threats. The air hummed with the ordinary, birds in the eaves, the creak of the swing, the faint whiff of lunch simmering inside. But shadows lingered. Marcus Hale's name hung unspoken, his upstate web a final coil to unravel. State investigators, tipped by Iron Promise's anonymous chain, were closing in. Arrest warrants drafted on Voss's ledgers, Hale's connections exposed as bribes and buried reports. No chase needed now. The law, prodded by truth, would grind him down. Jasper felt the moral tide turn, not vengeance, but justice's slow, poetic arc, honoring the lost without becoming them. Elena glanced his way, Tessa in her arms, the bear retrieved and shared between them. "Thank you," she said simply. The weight of 5 years in 2 words. He nodded, throat tight, the scar of his own past. The boy ignored the squad's silence, fading under this light. As evening fell, the convoy gathered one last time in the yard, engines warming under twilight's hush. Hawk clasped Jasper's shoulder, the grip a vow renewed. "You called us back, Lone. Road's yours again, but know the door's open." Jasper mounted up. The bike's familiar rumble, a companion once heavy, now lightened by purpose fulfilled. Tessa waved from the steps, Elena beside her, Ruth's hand on both. The chosen family expanded, threads weaving stronger. The engines roared soft, a farewell thunder rolling into the dusk, carrying Jasper toward horizons where promises waited, not as burdens but beacons. The road unspooled under stars pricking the velvet sky, wind whispering of roads taken and mended. Iron promise had ridden for the forgotten, unearthing honor from corruption's grip, proving loyalty's quiet power against the world's cynical grind. Jasper rode alone again, but not lonely. The echo of brothers, the mended life behind, a legacy etched in chrome and heart. Redemption wasn't a destination. It was the ride itself, vows kept in the silence between miles. Thank you for joining this journey of promises kept and families forged. If these tales of quiet courage resonate with you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got more stories of redemption roaring your way.